So it is the middle of March and the ground is frozen solid. Just absolutely frozen. It is well below freezing this morning. My hands, legs, and face might be a little bit frostbit. Lots of frost. It will be in the 30s today, which is nice and warm right now. Anything above freezing is warm for us. The sawdust is frozen, as you can see. It is not steaming. It just has a lot of frost on it. So this sawdust pile that is the partial source of the hotbed is not hot. My purpose in here is to show you the steam. Hopefully, I'll try and hold really still so you can see it. I have no idea if you can see it. Okay, so it's freezing outside, and this part of the bed is steaming. I don't see steam on the whole bed, but that doesn't mean it's not warm. This is definitely cooler than this. This is actually warm. This down here is cool. But you go down about 2 inches and it's lukewarm. So the way that I did this is with rabbit manure tea. I pour rabbit manure tea on carbon until it heats up. So that means I can go ahead and plant it. It's going to break down a lot and it's going to sink a lot. But it means that the bed is warm enough, not freezing, even at night, that I can go ahead and plant into it. If I wanted the bed to be hot all the way through with lots of steam, what I would do is make sure that in my bed I had many layers of manure alternating with carbon. If I did that, it would get raging hot, lots of steam, and it would shrink by about half. It would break down into compost almost instantly. What I want is a warm bed that doesn't sink very much. So I have mostly carbon with some rabbit manure tea and just the wet sawdust and bedding from the goats, and the cardboard will break down slowly because they don't have too much bacteria trying to eat them too quickly, and they'll just stay warm. I still did have to take the rabbits out before I could try it though, just in case it was going to have too much ammonia. Right now we have a little bit of steam, but it does not stink of ammonia in here. It just smells lightly of wood, and so the steam is not ammonia, it's just steam, which means I do not have too much nitrogen in here. I have a little hen that likes to sneak in here to lay her eggs, so I need to remember to take those in. Because I still let my chickens in here for a little bit of time during the day, I need to cover this with bird netting before I'm finished so that they cannot climb up here and scratch through it. Alright, so a lot of times it's dried out a little bit in the bag, so you have to break up the clods. The more moisture the bag has in it, the fewer clods there are. Alright, so I have my peas soaked. They're good to go. Sorry it's so bright in here. This is what I use to take from my bulk seeds and put into smaller containers. They're little fishing lure. They're little fishing lure containers, and they work really well. As you can see, there's a lot left, so I'll take those back in the house and keep them for next time. Now I'm just going to get some that's already mixed down there and sprinkle it on the top and put on the fertilizer. This is the fertilizer. I'm just going to sprinkle it. And every time I water, it'll water some of it in. Now I need to make sure it's all covered in case the chickens get a wild hare to come in and participate in the fun. So again, these are heavy gauge wire hoops. And then chicken netting over the top. Alright, there you go. Hoops and chicken knitting is on, and I'm going to go in. I will try to link a video in the back of this video and in the description, other recommendations of other times that I've built these, and as soon as they start sprouting I will let you see that too. So dirty. Good morning, guys. I find that if I don't come out super early in the morning, the light in here gets too intense and it's hard to watch the video. So we have had 1 week of snow where it's been really overcast. I planted most of the things in here maybe 3 weeks ago, and they've done well. Nothing has died from the frost, and that includes all the herbs that I brought in from the kitchen. I did not harden them off. I brought them out, I planted them, I put a milk jug over them, and then if it was freezing weather, I put the blankets over them. The other thing I do, if I take transplants, is I put a shade cloth over them for the first 3 or 4 days so that it's not having direct sunlight, especially in the greenhouse. It's just too intense for them. So I was going to pull off the blankets, the frost cloths, and let you see what it looks like. I do prefer frost cloth because it's lighter, but if I'm in a pinch and I don't have enough, white sheets work, white polar fleece works. And so I will go ahead and show you what it looks like as I roll this off. Alright, so what you're going to see in here is strawberries, greens, kohlrabi, carrots, radishes, and then you're going to see some strawberries that I pulled from the beds in the backyard that were still dormant, and I've got all my herbs. I've also got a sweet potato in here. Now our days have been freezing and our nights have been freezing for the last week, and the ground in here in the greenhouse is frozen. The hotbed is putting off a little bit of heat at night, and during the day it's always got a little bit of heat. So even though I have basil and sweet potatoes, and what else do I have in here that was sensitive? Lemon balm's a little bit sensitive, but mostly it's the basil and the sweet potato that's really sensitive, and they're doing fine. I came in and watered them every couple days because it wasn't warm enough for them to need more than that. Our official frost-free day is May 15th, is when you can plant your garden the first time. But we have a really heavy frost the end of June for as long as I can remember, like the 20th of June. I find that hotbeds work best with broadcasting, which means that there's a lot of seeds, and it's just packed with seeds. You can see the strawberries are starting to wake up. They were fully frozen when I brought them in. You can see we've got carrots and lettuce coming up. And I do have soaker hoses in here, but I also water by hand. I like to have an automatic system, but this is how I watered the last couple times that I watered because my hoses were frozen. So I store my water in this bin, and as long as it's above freezing or even just in the 30s, it's enough water that it won't freeze solid. And I can still get in here and water things even though my hoses are frozen. And then we'll see how our sweet potato's doing. This is going to be the real test. Oh, it's alive. Okay, I'm trying to grow starts off of it so that I can plant them out to other spots. So I'm making sure that it gets lots and lots of water. I've got all sorts of starts in the kitchen that can come out here, like the tomatoes. I can bring the tomatoes out even though it's just March. And as long as I put a milk jug over them and let them acclimate, they'll be just fine. So what I want to do is come out and sweet potatoes are supposed to be amazing as far as greens go. So you're supposed to cut it back to 1/3 of the plant if you're going to take greens. All right, I got a seed tray, just had potting soil in it. So I'm going to come and cut this guy. And take it in and see how we like them. I'm going to put this down. All right, so that's how much I have. You can see that in one spot, it's getting surface watered well enough that it started roots and started to anchor to form a new plant. So that's kind of fun. And I just started all these sweet potatoes from the supermarket. Sweet potato, yeah. So it gets really crowded in here very quickly. I harvest it constantly. But because it has such nice warm temperatures and everything I have in it right now is a warm season crop, they're pretty happy in here. I am worried. Yeah, they're just not... Sometimes I don't have time because I'm doing other critical things in the moment. I don't have time to come in and be the one watering, and then Kaya does it. She does a good job, but she's 12. And sometimes you need an adult to come out and do that kind of thing, just because sometimes I don't know what to look for to see if it's actually getting done enough. So that means that I need to be the one to water next time. All right, so for those of you who don't know, sweet potatoes, there's orange, there's white, there's kind of purplish. Sweet potatoes are like strawberries. They send out runners, which is why when you sprout them up and they first start to root and leaf in the jar, you can pull those leaves off and just stick them in the ground and they turn into new plants. They're prolific. Well, I'm having to come out about every day or two and harvest the greens. They're good for people food. You treat them as spinach, and this is the part that I harvest. This stalk here and the leaf. That's the part I actually use for the people food. This stem here, or more than you can eat, you can feed to rabbits. And then also, Kaya's been the one out watering for about a week. Usually I come through and grab anything that is crowding and not as people food as it could be, because we got a lot of food in here. And I haven't replanted anything. It's just that we harvest everything that can be harvested, and then that gives more sunshine and more water to what's left in here. So this is going to rabbits. This will not be wasted. And then for dinner we'll come out and we'll cut some more sweet potato vines for dinner. And we're in Idaho. We don't have a heated greenhouse. We just have the hotbed, which the soil in the hotbed is warm and it's composting, and that's how we're able to grow sweet potatoes in Idaho, because this little piece of plastic over the top would not protect sweet potatoes well enough from our late frost. We have frost into June, and we planted these sweet potatoes in end of April so that we would have a long enough growing season that they could grow and be harvested. So we've got celery, lots of sweet potatoes. This whole thing used to be lettuce and Swiss chard, but as the season got a little warmer, we planted everything else in, and now you see there's no lettuce and there's no Swiss chard, or there's just some that's gone to seed that was just kind of a fluke. We have some carrots. I don't know how well she has been watering, but that one looks pretty good, so she must have been watering pretty good. We have tomatoes. Generally I don't like to put tomatoes or big bushy things in the hotbed, but I always just want to experiment and see. I've had to cut out several of our ground cherries because they just get so big. They just spread. They'll take all the space that you'll give them, which means that our peppers and our sweet potatoes and our basil are getting really crowded by any place that I have ground cherry. Ground cherry is really yummy. It's like a tomatillo. Well, it is a tomatillo, but it has fruit. It tastes like pineapple. It tastes like dessert instead of like salsa. It's heavenly, especially for little kids who want to be able to just go out in the garden and snack on something. So this is basil. This whole thing is basil. This is celery. It's cutting celery for soups, not crunching celery for peanut butter. Lemon balm. And then the rest of it is just sweet potato. It has taken over because I haven't been able to come out and harvest it yet. I was double checking that we planted the right one that was edible, and it turns out it is. If you have something that looks like a normal potato and it's orange or purple or white and has a smooth skin, it's actually a sweet potato, even if it says yam. An African yam, a tropical African yam, is long and skinny and has a rough brown skin and it's white on the inside. Those ones, the greens can be toxic. So I guess always do your research, but I learned how to do the sweet potatoes from Danny and Wanda at Deep South Homestead. And I called them to verify before we started to eat these greens, and they said yes. If it's orange or purple or white on the inside, but is the shape of a big like potato, then that is actually a sweet potato. So you can see some of our lettuce has not bolted yet, which is lovely. We used Butter Crunch this year, and it's been fantastic. So I need to go ahead and get some more of this harvested for rabbits, just so that I can make space. Because when it's this crowded in here, they're fighting each other, but they're also preventing water from getting in. And so I need to keep harvesting until I can see the light of day and I can get my water in. It's nice to have a really packed garden bed, but what happens is if they don't have sunlight in between each plant, if they don't have airspace in between each plant, they actually start to mold and mildew at the bottom, and it'll kill them. Especially for things like strawberries and that kind of thing, because the fruit will get down there and it'll start to mold and it'll spread. And so even though I want them close to each other, I don't want them smothering each other. And another thing that helps down here so that we don't have evaporation is that everything here was planted into potting soil, but once things started going nicely, I put in sawdust on top so that when I water, the dirt and mud don't splash back up on the plants, and it works really well and holds the moisture in. So once I start to thin it out and we've got space between the plants where the soil could dry out, I put sawdust down, and it keeps the moisture in the bed, and it also keeps the mud from watering off the plants. This is something you can get in hotbeds. It's a kind of, just a fungus. It seems to really like carrots, but I just cut it off, and then this is still fine for rabbits.